I'd like to call to order the July 10th meeting of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability. We'll go ahead and do a roll call. And I'll just read names off, and you can wave at the screen or let me know if you're here. Anna Abernathy.
I'm here.
Jared Alexander.
Here.
Corbin Baird. Bronson Bast. Teresa Chakraborty. Samantha Ginther.
Here.
Ethan Horvath.
Here.
Jonna McGee. Andrew Predmore. Dave Rollo. Najal Ratsong. See, you got Dave Warren. And Pam Weaver.
This is Nolan Hendon. I just wanted to fill in. I'm Dave Warren's replacement from the Monroe County Environmental Commission.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
That's just something we need to update on our end.
Joe, are you still there?
Oh.
Hi all, did I freeze?
Yeah, I think so. You weren't saying anything for a second.
Okay, so you have a quorum. So can I have a approval of agenda? A motion to approve the agenda?
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So at the last meeting, we did not have a quorum, I believe. So we don't have minutes from that last meeting.
That's okay. I think we all, I'm not even sure if we have too many members of the public here too. So you might be able to skip to your report, Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone on the Zoom meeting. So if we go to, so yeah, report from chair. I don't have really anything new to report right now. Later on in the agenda, we will be discussing the bylaws. I hope everyone kind of reviewed those before tonight's meeting. I think there's some room for improvement within those bylaws so that we can more effectively operate as a commission. And that's really all I've got as a report from chair. So we'll go ahead to report from ESD. Lauren?
Yeah, thank you. This is Lauren Travis, Assistant Director of Sustainability. I'm actually going to spend the majority of my report giving a short presentation. Right now, we're working on climate action work, and so I will quickly switch to my new share. Let's see. All right. So I have a quick slideshow, and this is from the Sustainability Action Plan for this year. One of the goals was to conduct a climate vulnerability assessment. And what that really means is to have a better understanding of how climate change is going to affect not only the people of Bloomington and Monroe County, but our infrastructure and our economy. So very relevant to this group. I wanted to give a quick update about where we are on that. So that's kind of the first one here. We need to anticipate the impacts of climate change and then work on developing strategies and especially reaching out to communities that are at risk. So I prepared a quick slideshow of some of the initial findings. This will be ongoing for the rest of the year, and I will be presenting these findings to City Council probably in early September, because August is a lot of budgeting hearings. So this was planned and anticipated for this year, and we're on schedule so far, a little bit of a delay with COVID and everything. But wanted to look at making sure that the community is ready and is anticipating what's coming ahead in terms of climate impacts. And so we have a great resource here with the Environmental Resilience Institute, which is at Indiana University. And they had done some initial modeling showing some findings that we were working from. So impacts in the Midwest for climate change include increased precipitation, flood, extreme hot days, increased invasive species presence, and vector-borne disease, so mosquitoes and ticks. And these are things that most people in the community, when surveyed, have said that they are already experiencing. But we know that under sort of a business as usual trajectory, we've had a historical 2 days over 95 degrees, and that's anticipated by 2050 to become 50 days over 95 degrees, and to have a lot more extreme, so higher hot days, and also a little bit milder, colder days. And then also just a big increase in spring rainfall. So with all that in mind, wanted to really look at how that is going to impact Bloomington geographically, who that's going to impact, and what the consequences are. So not only are those things bad in and of themselves, they also affect people. If we have more hot days, then there's going to be impacts potentially to people that can lead to injury or illness. If you have a large storm, dehydration or heat stroke, increased prevalence of disease, disruption in food supplies, and property damage. So over the last couple of months, looking at which risks from climate change are most prevalent or to be expected among residents, it's a little bit difficult to differentiate, but I put in bold the ones that are most problematic for Bloomington. And those are extreme temperature, flooding, and air quality, although all of these will happen to some degree. So there's going to be extended periods of increased temperatures, and some of those impacts could be increased incidence of heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So if folks don't have somewhere they can go to and cool down, for instance, if you're homeless, that requires more calls to emergency medical services. Flooding, water intrusion in buildings. So if there's standing water for a long period of time, that can cause property damage and mold growth. And then increased air quality impacts, pollen, dust, fine particles. And then some of these we're seeing to some degree even in the time dealing with the pandemic. So some infrastructure struggles with food insecurity, stresses on the food system, and then some other things that will be less prevalent in Bloomington, but still present. We're fortunate to have a good water supply right now, but we are expecting increased growth of algae, which is challenging. And then some climate risks to the economy, agricultural yields. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about farming difficulties, crop losses. If the weather is more variable, then it's more difficult for farmers to be able to anticipate what their yield is going to be. Energy expenditures. So when it's hotter, people have to run the air conditioning more often, and that also increases their energy burden. If you're lower income, that's very challenging. Labor productivity, if the temperature is hotter than work that's typically outside, like construction, etc., there's fewer hours in the day where it's safe to do that. And then there's a small correlation that we're expecting a small degree more property-based crime, but not too much. I think one of the big takeaways, and something that I wanted to talk to this group about, is that we can look at the geographic impacts of some of these things and know that they're not going to be equitably distributed. So difficult to look at, but in the top left corner, that is traffic flow. So you can see that if you live in the proximity of I-69, you're going to have more particulate matter and pollution from cars that you have as an environmental factor. And this brings into mind like environmental justice. Not everyone in the community is experiencing the same prevalence of different variables. This is just a table that shows areas in which we're above state average. One of them is Superfund proximity. There's a lot of sites in Bloomington that used to be or are nearly qualify as Superfund sites. So hazardous waste proximity that can is not evenly distributed across the community. And then who's vulnerable? So children, older adults, individuals with disabilities, people that are economically stressed, people of color. So there's just little icons here that show, based on the information that we have, which of these climate risks that these groups of people are particularly sensitive to. If you're economically stressed, it's a struggle to deal with any of these since you're in a precarious financial situation. But you know, if there's a disruption in power failure, if you have a disability, that's harder to combat. And so just keeping in mind as we move throughout the year, working with you all to learn, to find out what we're learning through this process and ways that we can better serve the community as they experience these risks. So these are the main ones that are likely to happen. So likelihood times impact. The hazard ones, like I mentioned before, just as a summary, you know, storms, extreme precipitation, flooding, and then there's like differential risks to people, although they overlap, but sensitivity to extreme heat and air quality being those, and then also infrastructure. So those are things that are going to be really costly. Temperature variability affects our ability to maintain roads. You can see that if it's fluctuating wildly, we've had a lot more potholes. Stormwater management, anytime there's flooding, that causes a great deal of property damage, and that's expensive. Energy demand and cost, as more people need heating and cooling, that increases electricity need. And then just tree loss, as the climate shifts, trees are more or less viable. So this, I just wanted to give you an update. This is just an initial results. So presenting full information to city members in early fall. Those of you that are in working groups, especially I'm thinking of the waste one or some of the rest of the ones related to policy, if you have an interest in working with me on some data collection or sharing with me what you're learning about the sectors that you've been studying, that would be great. And I just wanted to open it up to the group for any questions about that. And I'll switch back to the, well, I'll keep it on the presentation in case any of you wanted to go back to some of the slides, but I will stop talking now.
Lauren, I guess I'd just be interested to learn more about what data, how we could help with data collection.
Sure.
What that would look like.
Yeah, so I think that, and I can talk to you individually about this, but a lot of these indicators we don't have a lot of information about because this is our first time we've really looked at climate vulnerability. I was seeing some gaps as I was going through and thinking about, do we have any good historical records of what floods have happened in Bloomington, just so we can document those as a baseline looking forward, or frequency of high heat events experienced locally. Or we have one air quality meter in Bloomington. It is on the east side of Bloomington, so it doesn't reflect the west side air pollution. But if we could just get a baseline on that, so that would be helpful, especially for city council to be able to see variability over time. If there were any of those categories that were climate risks that are interesting to any of you, then we could talk offline also about if you were interested in looking into some of those, because it's kind of a short time frame, but I think the more specific we can be about both historical data and then being able to track that moving forward. One of the things Joe had on the agenda was BCOS under the bylaws provides some sort of sustainability assessment every year. And if there were some of these climate hazards that BCOS wanted to track yearly, it could be air quality, then we can start to establish a more consistent baseline that can be provided to city council.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, I will go back to the agenda. Let's see. Oops. It's not without struggles doing this online. I think that's about it. I guess my only other report is that budget hearings will be happening next month. So for our department, Economic and Sustainable Development, I think it's in the third week of August, and I can send out when that is. I'm not sure exactly what format they'll be conducted in. I'm assuming virtually. But I can keep you guys apprised of that. It's going to be an important year. We're hoping that there won't be cuts, but we'll just have to see what the appropriation is from City Council. So you're welcome to attend the live stream of not only our department, but if there's any other budget presentations that are of interest to the group, that's the next thing that's kind of coming up on the city docket that's of note. And I will hand it back to Joe for a discussion of bylaws.
Thanks, Lauren. Would it be possible to put up a copy of the bylaws? Or, I mean, we don't have to. I'm just curious if it would be something readily available.
Do you have them up? I can allow you to share, or I could pull them up.
Let's see. I'd have
Just
to
get,
pull them
you
up
have
too.
them?
I can get to them pretty easily, yeah.
Okay, just give me a second. Joe, they should be up. Let me know if you want me to scroll down.
Okay, great, yeah. So the first thing that I'd kind of like to go over is if we go to, let's see, Article 2.4. So this covers the removal of commissioners and officers. And I know that we've been kind of going through an odd time with COVID-19. But with, I think the last 2 meetings, maybe even 3, we didn't meet quorum. And in order to effectively perform our duties, we have to have a quorum in order to vote on resolutions and motions that that will extend outside of the commission. So, as we read this, so this states that if you miss 3 consecutive meetings or if you miss 4 within a 12-month period. So going forward, I'd like to enforce that with more vigor, I guess. Because like I said earlier, it's kind of hard to get things done if we don't have a quorum to meet to perform the actions that we are convened to do. Is there any thoughts from the rest of the commission on that?
I'm all aboard for doing that, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Great. Are there any thoughts about the number of meetings? Does everyone feel that that's appropriate? I mean, if we change any of that, we'd have to do a vote to the bylaw. We'd have to amend the bylaws, which would require a 2/3 vote. And unfortunately, since we do have issues meeting quorum, that would be an issue in amending the bylaws.
I think those numbers seem appropriate to me.
I agree.
Okay, great. Great.
Joe, I do have a question. Will this be you're planning on enforcing this going forward, or will this be starting at 2020? So if no one has joined a meeting up until now, you're planning on moving towards removal? Just curious.
So my plan for right now is to reach out to reach out via email or phone if I have the phone number, the commission members who have not shown in the last 3 meetings or have not shown within 4 in the last 12 months, and kind of give them a heads up, kind of give them a month, maybe leaning a grace period. And if they don't show up to the next meeting, then I intend to kind of let them know you will be removed. I will be recommending your removal from the commission.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I think that seems really reasonable.
Joe, I have a question as a kind of new here. As I said earlier, I'm the president of the Monroe County Environmental Commission, and I don't know if that means I have voting privileges on this or if I'm just representing Monroe County. You know what the situation is there?
No, that's actually a really good point. No, that was another thing I wanted to bring up, kind of an inconsistency within the bylaws. So if we look at Article 1, I believe. So it says we're consisting of 14 members at the very beginning, and then the last sentence does say all members shall have a vote and shall serve without compensation. So I take that to mean that all 14 members, including the appointed by other councils and the members that they're part of the commission as part of their duties to staff, such as Lauren, we all have a vote. But then if we look down at Article 3.4, so yeah, that's a typo in the bylaws. That should be 2.4. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So there I'm kind of getting a disagreement. It says, unless otherwise specified, a majority of the members serving, excepting the non-voting ex officio members, constitute a quorum for purpose of conducting the official business of the commission. So if someone would like to correct me, I feel like they're contradicting each other. I like the idea of everyone voting everyone's here for a reason, so everyone's opinion should be an input. But as we can see, that this does directly, that 3.4 does directly correlate to a Bloomington Municipal Code statute, and so does the other one, the requirement above as well. So this contradiction goes deeper than just our bylaws, I will say. I'm going to move forward with the understanding that all 14 members have a voting privilege. If there's a disagreement, we can certainly discuss that, but that's my position right now.
Lauren, would you be able to scroll back up to the appointment breakdowns? Okay. Yeah, so it looks as though the liaison to the IU Office of Sustainability would be a non-voting member. And then I believe, and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, you would also be a non-voting member, correct? Based upon this reading of it?
Yeah, I don't think I vote, and Andrew or whoever would come from the Office of Sustainability would also not vote. So it's, the voting members would be 6 from mayor, 6 from council. And so I think the quorum saying you need to have a number of those 12 present. Not sure if it's a contradiction, but I can look into it if that's of concern.
I would say, if anything, just we could maybe add something in clarifying exactly who the ex officio members are, just so it's more clear to anyone reading the bylaws.
That sounds like a good idea. So again, yeah, any amendment to the bylaws, since we are adhering to Robert's Rule of Order, would require 2/3 of the body to approve that change. I'm trying to think if this would technically be considered the first reading, and it'd have to be, I think it takes 2 readings before we can actually vote it into effect. And I'm no Robert's Rule of Orders expert. I brush up on it when I need to perform these meetings, and that's about it.
Joe, do you need me to move down to a different section?
So those were really the 2 big points that I wanted to call to everyone's attention. I think since I do feel like we should also cover I can't think of what section is right now, the election of officers, because I know several members on the commission right now were new since the last election of officers. And according to the bylaws, this meeting is actually when we're supposed to elect officers for the year. The officers that are currently sitting, myself included, were elected in December when the previous officers were leaving for personal reasons, or just they were reaching the end of their tenure on the. So as of right now, there is no intention to hold an election at this meeting. Do we as a commission, especially with all the new members since December, feel like we should hold an election to be held next month? Or at another time?
Joe, can you read out who's currently serving in each of the positions? Do you know that? Or
I think, yeah, so I am the chair. The vice chair is Najla. The secretary is Pam Weaver, and the treasurer is Corbin.
cool, thank you.
I think if everyone's happy, I mean, since we just recently reelected people, I think it'll be fine to continue. The only thing is if, to check if Pam is still interested in serving, because I know I haven't seen her on the calls since we went virtual. So if she is stepping away, then we would then initiate a election for a new secretary, if that's all right with everyone.
Yeah, I can reach out to Pam and get her input.
I just wanted to mention under annual meetings, since it is July, there in parentheses is sustainability assessment. And so back in 2017, the commission did a pretty thorough review of certain sustainability indicators. I think it's sort of open to interpretation what that means. You are all volunteers. But I think that some of the data that I mentioned in the prior slide could qualify for that. And so I can send around the type of information that would be helpful for an annual report that would be annually updatable, because a lot of things that are sustainability indicators, we may not be able to get data on an annual basis for. So if you could provide feedback on that, I would view that as like perfectly sufficient as a sustainability assessment. As outside of that, we do have the 2019 Sustainability Action Plan Progress Report that was a more comprehensive effort. And if any of you had questions about that as well, I don't expect anyone to replicate something of that size as a commission, but I think that coordinating with the Environmental Commission on some indicators wouldn't be a bad idea, especially if we're collecting information about waste, for instance, make sure that we're sharing that with their waste working group.
I think in 2017, it was, I never saw the final report because I moved to Indy then, so I stepped down from the council. But a lot of the sustainability assessment indicators were based on the STARS community indicators list, which looking at the, sorry, it's on my phone because my computer's having issues pulling up my Gmail. A lot of them are similar to the sustainability progress report. As Lauren said, the sustainability progress report is a little more in depth than we ever got with the STARS community data. So I may still have a lot of that on my Google Drive from when we did that. So I'll have to dig through that, and I can provide that for all the other council or commission members.
This is what, it was a 9-page effort, annual sustainability assessment prepared by B Coast to Common Council. And then there were energy use, water use, and waste disposal estimates provided. I've been collecting those anyway for our greenhouse gas emissions report, but there's other environmental metrics that aren't being collected. So that's where I think that we could have a conversation about some things that are potentially easier for citizens to collect without having to do requests to, you know, Vectren or Duke or the utilities department. But for anyone that's looking for it, if you go to the city website and you type in Sustainability Commission, it comes up as 2017 assessment. There wasn't one completed in 2018 or 19. We've had kind of some fluctuation in membership, but I think it's useful just to get a good, you know, sense of where the community is at on certain indicators, but I don't think it should be the entirety of what the commission works on, because there's a lot of other things that you would probably enjoy doing besides writing a report about statistics. can you see the bylaws again?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Was there anything else that you wanted to do on that, Joe?
Those were the only things that I wanted to cover. If there's anything else that other commissioners would like to discuss about the bylaws, they are free to do so. Okay, if there is no other comment for the bylaws or no further discussion, so yeah, the next item on the agenda is Sustainability Action Plan Progress Report.
And this is for the benefit of newer members. It seems like a long time ago, but I presented to City Council, I think in February. And we've had our Sustainability Action Plan adopted for 1 full year now. And as part of reporting requirements to council, it was a presentation to say, you know, what have we done? What are we working on? And what have we not accomplished? And it's a good background on sustainability and what's active in the community right now. I also recommend going back and looking at the full plan if you haven't had the opportunity to. I don't need to go through the whole thing, but this is the basic structure. So this is a summary table, and it talks about, you know, what do we achieve last year? What actions are in progress? You can see that we had already started to initiate this vulnerability assessment at the end of last year, and it will continue for the rest of 2020. So that's an action in progress. And then it shows some actions that were not met, and those are discussed in further detail in that section. This is relevant also if, for instance, you can go to down here and see if we're looking at waste. There's a lot left to figure out in that sector, which is one of the reasons that was a working group that was created. We do not have a lot of we didn't meet the progress in like waste recovery, for instance. But I think one of the important things is tracking both sources of contamination and potentially having this group provide further waste education. But yeah, so this is what Joe was mentioning, and it's a little bit more in depth than the 2017 progress report, but it serves the same purpose. It sort of just tries to provide a comprehensive overview of what the actions were expected to be for that year and whether we met those targets. Trying to think if there's anything else. There's a little bit of further description in here, so that's also a good background. You know, if you're trying to figure out, you know, why did we not achieve the goal in that particular section, it just mentions like what are the challenges we're experiencing, what actions did we take, what was the big achievement from last year, and then what's the focus for implementation this year. So that's where we are with detailing how climate change is affecting Bloomington now, how those vulnerabilities will change in upcoming decades, and then that will be completed by the end of the year. So in case you didn't have the opportunity to see what that come in front of council, it's definitely of relevance to the commission. And if anything comes to mind after checking it or have any questions, feel free to reach out to me about that as well. Are there any updates from the working groups?
So I'll go ahead with the waste reduction. There really is nothing to update to the commission concerning that. We haven't met, and I did send out an email recently. Can't think how recently though. Basically, just requesting everyone who is on the subcommittee to familiarize themselves with the documentation that we have available, and hopefully before next meeting we can get together in some way to discuss a goal for this working group. And Lauren, I think I would really like your input in terms of what the city what would be useful for the city from this commission in terms of waste reduction.
Sure, I think that there's like two potential avenues. One was potentially creating resources for greater waste education to reduce contamination. So you could go that route. And then I know that Jarrett had discussed models from other cities about expanding composting programs. Something else that if we were to do a quick assessment of not only one, I mean, I think you talked to Iowa City, but maybe comparing 5 different successful options for expanding composting opportunities more broadly across the city. That's definitely an area for improvement. So like either education or an assessment of ways to expand that would probably be the best.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know we have documents from Iowa City and Boston, but it would be great to do kind of a general investigation across other cities that had successful and unsuccessful plans and learn from them. Is there anyone here from the Sustainable Business Working Group that could provide an update?
Oh, I'm here, and there is no update. And I think it was a Sustainable Business Certification Working Group in particular. So maybe we should add that. And weren't we discussing last time about having this group drop off because the people who had started with the certification are no longer on the commission? Or am I misremembering it?
If I'm remembering correctly, I believe it was the UDO that was going to be altered.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. I just mixed them up. Who else is on the Sustainable Business Certification Working Group besides me then?
I believe Bronson was, and Pam as well.
Bronson, yes.
Other than
That's
those
right.
two, I'm not sure.
Okay. And is Pam still on the commission?
She is.
Okay.
She hasn't resigned, so. I mean, I haven't got any notification from her that she intends to leave the commission.
I did want to share for this group, someone reached out to me that's working on a project called Carbon Neutral Indiana. It's being sponsored by the Indiana Forest Alliance, to my knowledge, and they are trying to get people to commit to carbon neutrality. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I would probably require reaching out to the person that's running this, but they do have a business calculator. I'm not sure what they're asking businesses to do in order to get this decal. So it may or may not be useful, but if you needed another action item for this group, since this is a new effort, what they do, they're making a map of progress. And if you click on measure your business's carbon footprint, they don't have Bloomington listed. I think in order for the commission to participate in having businesses do this, we would need to figure out, if it's basically legitimate, if it's a useful calculation of carbon footprint, because we wouldn't want, people to just participate kind of in a greenwashing exercise. We really do want them to be able to substantively reduce their, energy and water use. But I can share this in the chat I'll just put it in an email. And if someone wanted to reach out to, I have the contact information of the person that says that they're working on this, and see if it's worth following up on or not.
Yeah, just thanks for sharing that. This is nice to know about, and I think theoretically it's legitimate. It's just basic math. If you buy carbon credits to offset your carbon output, you can become carbon neutral. But the question is, how are they spending that money? Is it the best use of those funds? And I think, it would take someone, who knows really how to check the credibility of that, of the science behind it, right? Of how they're spending the money. Yeah. Just to make sure it's not, like you said, something unethical to encourage people to do. Because in general, in theory, carbon neutral is perfect, is great. It's always a good thing to be carbon neutral.
Yeah, I think that I'm sure the intentions are in the right place. There's a lot of times when there's carbon offsets, it's really important that that's them being reinvested locally. So if the carbon offset, for instance, went to Indiana Forest Alliance and they were purchasing forest land, that would be awesome. But I just don't know. So I'll send it out, and that could be something, since it's certification focused or achievement focused, then follow up on that one.
Yeah, I will plan to reach out to them. Thanks. It says it's fiscally sponsored by the Indiana Forest Alliance here at the bottom of the screen. Carbon Neutral Indiana is fiscally sponsored by the Indiana Forest Alliance. So, it maybe sounds like it's a legitimate org, but yeah, I will contact them and check them out.
I think kind of covered the policies when it's a little bit, I don't know that we have formal membership in that, but I will follow up about being involved more in the climate action plan, for those of you that are interested in that. And then I think we can move, if anyone had new business they wanted to bring up.
So yeah, I don't have any new business, and I didn't see anyone else raise their hand either. So
maybe we'll be back in person. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, have you heard any talks within the city about having in-person meetings? I know we're in an uptick, so I don't know if that's really plausible right now.
I'm not sure. We were definitely going to be virtual until we finished, until July 4th. And so I think for all the July meetings that we're extending it, but we'll just have to see, because typically you're not supposed to conduct in a normal circumstance, in order to have access for folks. It's obviously better to be in person. And so the virtual meetings, are challenging for people that don't, for instance, have internet access. But we'll just have to see. I'll try to give you guys as much notice as I can about what the rest of the year is going to look like. But just as a background, I'm not sure that anyone's really meeting for any purposes right now in person. This is considered a, I don't know, I think that it would probably be lower on the list of things to get phased back in person. I'm sure that city council will probably be meeting together before, BCOS would be meeting in McCloskey, but it's hard to really say. We'll just see what the trends look like. In the meantime, if you have any feedback for Joe or I, a way to make this a little bit smoother, we'll try to figure out the transitions between the sections a little bit better. But and the other thing is, if there's topics that topics or speakers that you'd like us to invite as part of, the following month's meetings, just let us know as well.
Okay, I guess if there's nothing else to discuss, I will go ahead and move for adjournment. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, 11th. Thanks, everyone.